Good afternoon, everyone. Good lunch? Yes? Energy back? Good to have all. Very, very excited about this session. I don't think anyone in this room who hasn't heard DPI, who hasn't heard about DPI. No, yesterday when I asked about ChatGPT, there was at least one person who raised his hands. But and especially now can you even imagine living your life without UPI, without Paytm, without all the little things we have on our phone that we use? And in fact, in Delhi, there's a joke that when you walk into a store and you see someone actually paying with cash, you know they have flown in from outside India. But Pramod needs no introduction. He's the CTO of EkStep Foundation. He's the chief architect of Aadhaar. And I know him as one of the people, along with Nandan, who has made it possible for every single one of us, for 1 billion Indians, to have an identity. Please give him an applause. I use all the apps and I use UPI extensively, but I got to know about, the magic of DPIs when I had a conversation with Pramod a few months back to just understand, because in G20, everyone was talking DPI, so we wanted to understand what exactly went into it. So the first question to you, Pramod, I'm sure most of the people in this room, like me, think of DPI as a platform. It's a platformization strategy, right? And you vehemently believe it's not. And you believe that we are moving away from platform to open network protocol. Talk a little bit about that.
Okay, afternoon sessions are really bad. Okay, first of all, it's very hard to keep awake, especially when she feeds awesome food like this, right? It's wonderful to be here. Digital public infrastructure is the topic of the day, especially given G20 presidency.
Of the year.
Of the year. Oh, okay. Of the year. I think it's wonderful that, India sort of coined that term by showing that we could build quite like physical infrastructure, like highways and railroads. We could imagine digital infrastructure on top of which economic activities can thrive and thus bring large-scale formalization, inclusion, as we all want to see, right? So the journey of how we broadly say India stack. There's no definition of India stack, by the way. You know that, right? It's just a term, okay? General loose term that says everything we do with tech. But I think really started with Aadhaar. I think we had telecom revolution before that. But nobody thought about what does it mean to build something like GPS, something like internet. It is so minimalistic. All it does is answer the question, who you are, not from a philosophical perspective, from, that you can quest for life by figuring out who you are. But it's from a systemic perspective, to claim your identity. And all it did is that. And it's a very, very powerful idea of building something so simple and so minimalistic. And most importantly, by itself, does not solve anything. So it was very interesting when we started Aadhaar journey. People asked the question, so what does it solve? And it said, it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't even give you citizenship. People are very disappointed, right? People are very disappointed. What do you mean with this? Aadhaar is not citizenship? Aadhaar was not citizenship. It didn't even have a good-looking card. It was, first of all, it was sort of bad plastic laminate. Because, as you did in Washington, we can tear off our card because card meant nothing. You are your identity, right? And you could prove anytime, anywhere. It's such a powerful, simple idea that it unlocked value. It unlocked value because rest of the ecosystem around Aadhaar, many of you, including many of you, leveraged it to solve something for that individual or for that company or so on, right? So when people use it to unlock value, then the idea of DPI is born. Really, the idea of DPI was born of the idea, not a solution. It by itself doesn't do anything. It's just one building block. But many things can be done on top of that. But your bigger question is, UPI is a classic example of your larger question. Is UPI a platform? And people use the word UPI as a platform, right? For the technologically savvy folks, who are nuanced about their definition, UPI is not a platform. UPI is an open network, but powered by a protocol.
Yeah.
And what's a protocol? It's just HTTP is a protocol. SMTP is a protocol for email exchange and so on, right? We have not created one ourselves. We have seen in internet protocols working. But UPI was literally a 2-page protocol. And that's all UPI was. That allowed money, not even money. Did you know UPI can actually move any stored value, for that matter? RBI hasn't allowed it yet, but it'll allow one of these days. Any stored value to any other stored value in real time. The power of that simplicity was really started with that one sentence in 2013 when Dilip Asbe and Nandan Nilekani and I were brainstorming it and say, if you can send instant messages, literally, and one mail, literally so easy to send mail, why is it so hard to send money? Right? Then we started building on the UPI, idea of UPI. In 2014, we started writing the protocol. And 2015, we launched the pilot and so on. 2016 demo happened and, sort of gave the boost. So, but the idea of, so what's a DPI? In the case of UPI, the digital public infrastructure is actually the protocol. It's not even the software. It's not even the system. It's not anything. It's just that protocol that transformed the possibility of moving money from any currency to any currency, which is why Singapore, India, we just launched, because UPI was currency agnostic, device agnostic, by the way. How many of you know UPI is used, same UPI protocol is used 384 million times in December to move money using fingerprint. And 384 million transactions in December. All of us are smartphones, so we don't see it happening. India uses same UPI protocol for people who have no phones to transfer money. So the ability to imagine such simplicity was so powerful that it triggered the innovation, triggered the phone pays of the world, and triggered everything that you see from the bazaar, from the marketplace, which all of you represent, right? The possibility of such imagination comes about. I think, so the DPI thinking has become very, very, very sophisticated in India. And we are hoping through G20 conversations, we can transform much of that knowledge to the world. We also believe 2 reasons why I think India is generally interested in that is because, one, we sort of, I think we take pride in saying that we give knowledge to the world. I mean, whether whether true or not. I don't know. You can clap. It's okay. We feel good, I think, by saying it. So it's a good thing, I suppose. I think, from ancient times, we had knowledge. We were a knowledge, country, and we always shared knowledge, and we are sharing knowledge. But I think there's more business reasons. Business reasons is that Indians are everywhere. So, and Indians being everywhere, we can have both capability, what you call digital transactions. Our skills will be transported across geography. Our money will be transported with the remittances back and forth. Knowledge, money, people will go cross-border, and digital is the way to do that. And so we want to be able to make sure if there is a GSM play in the world, we want to write the GSM protocol, right? We want to be able to drive the protocol in making sure. So, and the other interesting part is the way the companies go. Wherever the protocols go, companies go. And it's a very, very natural thing to happen. So I think that's another interesting part. But ONDC is the latest example. We'll talk more, I think, maybe today. But I don't know how much time we get, but we'll talk a little bit, yeah.
Tell me something. When you and Nandan were sitting in that little office and figuring out Aadhaar, did you even imagine today, like, this is where it would get to?
No. I think, no. By the way, I joined Nandan as a volunteer to just help out at the midlife crisis, right? So we were all there, we have to help the country and all that stuff, right? So quit the job, joined, we had no clue. And we have Subnesh, is one of our officers who've been there in the Aadhaar system. Nandan also told us, I think, it might be a spectacular disaster, and it might be 1 year later, I might be back from Delhi, back to Bangalore, doing his stuff. But we said, we can as well try. So I think, but real success of Aadhaar, in fact, I'm speaking again this weekend in Hyderabad on the part of G20. People wanted to understand the core of essence of Aadhaar, not the capabilities of Aadhaar. I think people understand that. Why did it really succeed, right? I think it is two reasons, primarily. It's extreme simplicity.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the idea of infrastructure. When you think about digital infrastructure, you are not thinking solutions. So as a lot of us had to shed our product company background, where we came from, where more features are better. So as product managers, we want to build more features and more capabilities. The less was better for Aadhaar. Actually, though, it was very, very powerful that you could do everything that we could strip out, we stripped out. And the second was extremely an ecosystem play. It was from day one a demand-side ecosystem-driven play for ensuring no frill bank accounts can be opened, which is why, I don't know whether you saw that number from Bureau of International Standards. BIS published the report that India moved from less than 20% bank account in 2010 to 2016 to 2017. We were 80% bank account. So we compressed 4 decades of development cycle into literally half a decade through a non-linear change. So I think this non-linearity, this exponential transformation, if you want to see, you can't do everything. That's the idea. Exponential, it has to be extreme simplicity and earlier Rekha talked about collaboration and coming together to solve bigger problems. That's the essence of DPI as well. Knowing that you can't solve, you don't even know how to solve it, frankly. But you're hoping that if many of you put together your might, that piece by piece, we will solve. So DPI is about satisfying the necessary conditions for it, the impetus for it, not sufficiency. So we should never look for sufficiency because we don't know how healthcare gets solved and education gets solved. We don't even know what solving education even means. We don't even know. Yeah.
Exactly. So on that point, I have 2 questions and I'm going to combine them. One, there's a general belief, and maybe it's a myth, and here's your chance to address that if you're talking about an open protocol, there are security concerns.
Yeah.
And how do we address that? I mean, what are there real security concerns with DPI? And there are a lot of questions about where does your data sit and how secure is it? So one, that. Second, going back to Rekha's brilliant conversation before this on the roadmap to net zero, we've seen DPI play a fantastic role for financial inclusion. We've seen DPI in healthcare with COVID. Is there a future where we see DPI playing a role to address some of these key challenges like energy crisis, food crisis? What's your point of view? You can address both.
So the first part is about security. There are two issues that you face. When government starts building things, or even one private company starts to monopolize, you have the same discussion. Both have the same discussion. Yeah. In one sense, it's a monopoly. Government is a large monopoly in that sense, right? They end up building. So when they become the sole builder and provider of everything, then there are questions about, data accumulation, potential surveillance, or using the same data for unintended purposes.
Yeah.
All questions prop up, and genuinely so. I think we are a vibrant democracy. These questions ought to happen, and they will happen. There goes the simplicity of DPIs. The DPI, if you truly build DPI as almost purposeless in that sense, building blocks, very small building blocks, then the solutions is highly decentralized. So by definition, then there's nothing called Aadhaar. Aadhaar know exactly 4 attributes about you. Aadhaar is the only identity system, by the way, in the world that captures only 4 attributes about you. The closest nearby actually captures 12 or 14, Indonesian, I think. Almost every other identity system captures 20, 30, some of them 50, 60 attributes about a person. Aadhaar captures so little that our security came from the fact that we stored no data. So in that sense, right? This is so easy. And it captured no purpose. So when you open a bank account, Aadhaar system doesn't know. So we baked in a lot of that into the design. So it is essential that we look at 2 patterns, minimalism and decentralization. Minimalism is about making sure you only capture data that is necessary to serve that one purpose. And then many solutions can be built on top of that, right? Second is about decentralization, making sure different parties do different things. Data remains decentralized. So if you look at our latest, the only country who is opening up data back to the people, right? We know our data empowerment constructs under, I don't know whether you've been tracking something called account aggregator. It's new. It is the only such thing in the world, by the way, where GDPR gives you the right to own the data. In Europe, for example, we don't have data protection bill yet. I think when the minister comes, you can ask him. I think it's coming, he said, as in March, I think it's going to be tabled or whatever. Hopefully it'll happen. Yeah, we need one anyway. But we are not a law-abiding nation, I think. Everything is a grayscale for us. We are like living in the grayscale. Red light is okay. Maybe you don't have to stop. Nobody is there, so I can go through. Because of that, we need technology backbone. We need technology, policy and law baked as much into the implementation. If the implementation doesn't bake in this, nobody will follow. It's too complex to follow, too fuzzy to follow. Common man can't understand the benefit of it. So it should be baked into the actual transaction protocol. So account aggregator is one of those examples where the data, almost everyone misunderstands account aggregator as a mechanism to pool the data and give it back to you. If you look at the architecture, the data does not leave the place where it originally occurred. So if you go to a healthcare hospital, obviously the hospital has a record, you have a record. You book an Uber, and then you have Uber as a record, you have a record. You go to a hotel check-in, they have a record. It remains there. So architecture is such a way that the data does not leave where the transaction occurred, but we brought technology and now hopefully policy support for you to unify without centralizing. So centralizing is a bad idea. Unifying is what we are after. So it's like UPI in that sense. So everybody likes that. What was the second question about? Where else are we working on? So healthcare, education, healthcare is a big one, ABDM, Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, ABDM. But really, if you look at the essence of the digitization, it goes into 3 buckets. Think about it. 1, who am I? The various types of identity. Aadhaar does not solve all types of identity. Identity is very, very contextual. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a teacher, I'm a doctor. Identities vary. Identities vary in context. Are you a resident is all Aadhaar is answering. But ABDM, for example, is creating what's called functional identities, called doctor identity. We have no such identities. Why is it important? A digitally verifiable identity is needed for the counterparty if we transact everything in the digital realm. Yeah. If I am in the digital realm, otherwise it will be like Facebook. I don't know whether I'm talking to a bot or a fake account and so on, right? It's okay for social media because sometimes anonymity, all the good stuff happens there. It's fine. But in real transaction, if I'm doing B2B transaction or a telemedicine transaction, I better know the credentials of the doctor. I need to know. In the physical world, because I can see somehow we believe, there's a hospital, I walked into Apollo, hopefully they have done the credential check, And it's not like a fake guy sitting in a room in Apollo, right? Hopefully. I mean, we are just making sure it happens. So, but in digital world, it's very, very hard to figure. So we are digitizing the nouns. Think about it. Vehicles, identities, companies, people, identities is very key. Digitizing the noun. Then we have to digitize the assets, which is the second big layer, which is what DigiLocker, DIPA, the account aggregator, where your digital credential, whether you have a property, you can't prove you have a property. Whether you have a 5-star rating in Uber with 5 years experience, you can't prove. So the ability to prove who you are, what you do and what you have. So that's the second layer, is what you have. And the third layer is what you can do, which is what you call the verbs, digitizing the verbs, transactions, which is what we are doing with UPI, was the transaction of payment. Now we are doing with OCEN, which is a open lending network. ONDC, which is a commerce network, where you, now with your identity, maybe an SME, you are an SME with your identity, and with your assets, provable assets that you are an SME who can sell good quality apples or whatever products you're selling, can now participate in economic opportunities, right? So as a doctor, you can participate. As a plumber, you can participate. But when you do that, the last layer, transaction layer, we are doing in a slightly different fashion than platform. We are doing what UPI did to this. We are doing what's called a decentralized peer-to-peer commerce, which is what ONDC is trying to do. It doesn't need a powerful intermediary in the middle. Traditionally, that's how you solve it. You solve it by becoming the broker between the connecting parties. We are saying technology can actually allow you to connect. And if I can prove who I am and what I have, then I can hopefully participate in that peer-to-peer transaction. It's very, very ambitious, very, very ambitious view of how the nouns and the assets and the verbs can get digitized across the system. But I can tell you one thing. This cannot and will not happen without the market player.
They're right here.
They are right here. I think we always talk about that, the coming together of the three things to happen. One, the policy readiness. SEBI, for example, very, very early, and Madhvi now is the chairman. She was earlier in SEBI. She really pushed at that time, saying she wanted to ask this. She was asking the question, why does KYC cost of a mutual fund account cost 1,500 rupees? It was 1,500 rupees to open a mutual fund account. And if I'm getting only 50 bips, 0.5% commission, why would I sell it to somebody who don't write a 3 lakh check or 300,000 rupees check? So the problem was that our entire business models revolve around high value or high ticket, low volume mental model. Lending is the same way. I would rather give 20 lakh or 10,000 crore or whatever, loan to one person and sit pretty for 15 years. That's easier than giving, 50,000 rupees to an SME and chasing them for a tiny, 2-week loan or a, bridge loan or whatever, right? It's very, very hard. Our models simply don't fit into that at all. So our idea is to shift from that to so policy intent is ready, and SEBI was very, very clear that we must dramatically collapse the cost of onboarding, which is eKYC, cost of trust, which is DigiLocker and credentialing and data, so that we can actually get formalization or expansion of the pie. Beyond the 20 million people or 50 million people that we all go after, we can go after 200 million people. Beyond that gets harder and harder, but nevertheless, that's a good starting point for us. But only policy won't cut it. So we built the infrastructure so that if you have highways connecting 200 million people, we can hopefully have the right economic models, incentive business model. But the third part is the business. Business where India's diversity of 1.4 billion people, the most populous nation in the world, congratulations. It's not so bad. Why are we so scared? We are the most young, maybe we will dominate. Youngest, nation. Very, very, very ambitious, aspirational, young. But the diversity that brings diversity at scale. You know, we talked about 4 million people country and 2 million people country. We are a 1.4 billion people country, and Bangalore alone, I think we speak 109 active languages, 22 official languages. Because we are so freaking diverse. Diversity necessitates diversity of solutioning as well. Diversity of solutioning can only happen if we really have all of you step up. Which is why I think we are seeing enormous amount of startup and entrepreneurial energy and enterprise innovation energy coming through to build on top of the DPIs for imagining possibility of 500 million. And UPI first time proved that we were, credit card was 22 million people. UPI today is used by 500 million people. 500 million people. Between fingerprint and smartphone. It's just crazy how much expansion of the formalization has happened. And if you can continue to do that in healthcare access to, affordable access to healthcare, affordable access to skilling, education, and business opportunities, if all of you can make that happen, we have an extremely powerful future. It's amazing what we can do.
Game-changing. It's a game-changing future. And Pramod has one ask. And I told the team, if you want me to do justice to this conversation, I need 1 hour. So, but we are unfortunately out of time.
You have more interesting people coming.
Pramod has one ask, which is this tech industry has to get involved. And it has to get involved in building out the solutions, scaling the solutions. So if any of you have ideas, want to reach, please reach out to him. Let me know. I'm happy to connect. But I think we need to have much broader engagement with the tech industry. Can we take one question? There are a lot of hands up.
Oh, okay.
No? Sorry.
No time. No time. We can do later.
What,
but I would ask you, but when you have to innovate for 1 billion people at scale, you cannot copy-paste mental models, okay? So you have to be very, very innovative in reimagining sachetization. I think we have done that in the, in the physical CPG industry, we have done that really well. Shampoos to sachet to everybody to afford. How do you create new age products that is sachetized to reach everybody? Would be an interesting imagination for all of you.
And Pramod's going to be around for a little bit. So want to catch him? Come and catch him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pramod. Fascinating.
Oh my God. For more interesting content, like, comment and subscribe to our NASSCOM YouTube channel.